morning. Thank you for coming for round two of our tribute to the time that we've spent in Tanzania. We're going to open with prayer, please. Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for this day, this beautiful sunshine. We thank you, Lord, for the chance to talk about the work that you have placed on our hearts. And we just thank you for this opportunity to share what's been accomplished and maybe what we also hope to do in the future. We ask always for your wisdom and guidance as we do your work. We thank you for your blessings. In your precious name, amen. So we're starting with a story that's near and dear to our hearts, which is the water situation in Tanzania, specifically Kashasha, and some of the reasons behind why water is so important in our overall focus. So Sarah's going to talk about our trip and our experience with finding out how they experience water every day if they aren't close enough to the things that we have put in place for them. So we're going to let Sarah start.
Hi, I'm Sarah Neal. For those of you that may not recognize me, I'm Sarah Neal. The water situation in Kashasha is a little bit different than other places in Tanzania. We've all given to the Lutheran Relief or Lutheran Assistance, and they usually want to drill a well. Well, in Kashasha, in that area, that's impossible. It's rock there, which makes it impossible to drill. So we have come up with other ways of collecting water, and it seems to be working. You'll get some ideas here. I think when you see all the slides, not just the ones about the woman at the well. So kind of look out for water collecting things throughout the entire presentation, not just this portion. Oh, okay. Well, I'm not going to read it to you. You're quite capable of doing that. But the first picture is kind of, that's going back up the hill. And if you can see right up in that area just above the man, imagine carrying 2 buckets of water. They're sloshing, they're moving. A 5-gallon bucket weighs about 40 pounds. Those are not quite 5 gallons, but imagine doing that on that trail, going over what I was pointing to, those root collection, in flip-flops, carrying 2 buckets of sloshing water. Probably doing that more than once, more than twice, more than 3 times a day. Just something to think about as we're going through this. There is, as you can see, a kind of a underground pipe spring thing that was put together many years ago. And as you can see, it's not in very good shape right now. I believe Wellington said part of the falling apart happened during the earthquake in, I believe that was, 2016. So this is now the best place in the area to get fresh, clean water. I want you to just take note of how they're collecting it. It's really quite interesting.
This is the trickle that comes out. That's the whole amount.
Well, and we also have another trickle that comes up the top. I believe in one of the other slides, you'll be able to see that they actually try to collect in 2 places at once so that they're not there, because everyone kind of just waits their turn. It's a very, I believe people get there and they can chit chat and have a moment together. But if you want to change that, you'll see, oh, okay, we're going to a different spot. That's okay. This lady here, we saw her, she had collected, she was, I believe, at her 2nd or 3rd time that she had collected water while we were just standing there. So she was collecting water, putting it into a bucket, and she was going up another path that I would think would be more than a quarter, maybe not quite half a mile up a little path, and then I don't know how far she had to walk from the end of the path to her home to do this 3 or 4 times a day so that her family has water. They also, some of the men come down, or people come down, and as we see there, they're doing a little laundry, keeping things tidy, just doing a little washing there. Um, Amy was brave enough to go over and see how it's done, what is needed to get just a shirt clean. So it was very educational for all of us. Mike decided that he would be the gentleman and help this young woman carry her water up the hill. And from what we hear, she would look back every couple of steps. She'd look back and smile, look back and smile. They got to the top, in Mike's words, where he was panting, she was smiling. She said thank you. She picked up the bucket, put it on top of her head, and went on her way. And Mike just stood there breathing, or trying to. Okay, here we have some collection. As you can see, everybody just kind of waits their turn. It's all very social. We also did learn, I'm not sure if there's a slide for this or not, but we also did learn that this water goes down a stream to another village lower down the mountain. So it can't, it has to be, there was a gentleman there that was cleaning out the weeds to make sure that the water then was able to trickle down to the village further down. Does that make sense? Am I explaining that well? Yeah, okay. It it's really a very interesting process. People are just very happy to be there, is what I thought.
And this is their water for cooking, for taking a bath, for
Washing the
their
shirts.
clothes. It is their water for everything.
Yep.
So you can imagine why they have to take 1 or 2 or 3 trips every day. And often it is the children that are tasked for doing that.
Okay, I think we're ready.
Is it free from pathogens and?
I don't. Yes, they drink it from there. We do not, but they do. Absolutely, that is their fresh water. Yes, they use it.
So you can see there are 2 different places where she's collecting the water because she wants to move along with this process because she's probably going to have to do it a couple more times. This gentleman here is the gentleman that cleaned out the weeds and made sure that the water then could go down to the next village. The way the community works is just so enlightening. They were all visiting, talking, and being very friendly to each other, where I would think that maybe here it wouldn't be quite as friendly and as social. But it was very nice. So,
how close is that to the town?
no, it's probably from the school, probably,
It's a 15-minute walk
yeah,
for us from the school.
yeah, so not quite a mile.
So people that live closer in town can go to those tanks that have been provided.
Mhm.
But for people who live too far out to walk all the way into town, this is where they go.
And hopefully, let's go on, see if we can. Okay, the path was a footpath. So you're walking.
1 foot in front of the other
Yes,
path.
and there are grasses that are quite high on each side, down a path. And like we said,
Roots, stones.
yes,
Yeah,
it's not a,
path.
yeah, it's roots, root stones. And we were all in tennis shoes and still were having trouble negotiating it. Imagine it with some flip-flops or barefooted, a 40-gallon bucket. Maybe you're trying to carry 2. I know that just in the one place up the hill where I pointed out where the roots were, I found myself fighting to just pay attention to what I was doing so I didn't fall and break my neck. And I had no bucket. So keep that in mind. The path starts off in a kind of like a field, I guess, and then it just the weeds get higher and the path gets narrower and narrower until it is really truly 1 foot in front of the other, and you need to pay attention to where you're going. There's no looking around, not for us anyway. People that do it numerous times a day probably can. So anyway, just
So the train makes it impossible for a wagon.
oh,
Absolutely.
not going to happen. No, you're lucky if you can n-
And it is
and
small,
stay
so
upright.
You're going in between trees and up a hill and the roots
Okay.
are there. You're-
Yeah, and it's downhill, and then as you're carrying the water, it's back uphill. Um, and it's narrow. Any
It's a
questions?
big perspective builder, and Wellington pointed that out. It's like, think about that. They don't have running water in most of the village. This is literally just part of their daily routine. And culturally, I thought it was interesting. Wellington shared with us that when you meet someone from the area and you want to figure out where they're at, the question that they ask is, where do you get your water? Because there are these little sources, in the cities and things like that, there's some municipal water supply, but in the villages, where you get your water is very important. And how far you have to go to take it. And that was, for us, where we're used to just turn this on and water comes out. It was a perspective builder.
It was also a different perspective from, we started, with other groups working on the water project for the school and the tanks there. So to see that most of the village is still doing this, the tanks at the school are for the school, so, what they are still really going through every day and what a big part of their day this is. Many of the children spend part of their day doing water hauling.
We have been partnered with a church in Finley. They've given us 200 no $2,500, and they were hoping to drill a well, and that's why I started off with we're not going to drill a well in Kashasha. So we are working with Wellington, and he's going to work with his people there and see if we can't get some other way of collecting water or using this part of this to collect water for the village. But we do have to keep in mind that it has to continue to go downhill. We can't cut off the people that are lower in the hill from their water. So it's gonna take a while before we can go forward because we have a lot of things to consider.
Well, I
Any-
would imagine at a very young age for people would cause medical issues as far as like with their shoulders and so forth. At a very young age, your shoulders have to be really worn.
Well, yeah, and necks, I would think, because the lady there plopped that big gallon thing on her head and off she went as Mike is gasping for air. Any questions? Thank you.
So the next part of our presentation is about our delightful experience at the orphanage that we have visited before. And one of the things that was different this time is that we went on our own. We did not have anyone from the diocese with us, and they didn't know that we were coming. So it was something we were looking forward to see how are things really being run. They don't know that we're coming. It wasn't intentional, but we just didn't know what our schedule would be. And so coming to the orphanage with the gifts that St. Mark's had donated, it just was a wonderful experience. And I like this picture because you can see right here one of Jeff's crosses that we passed out to everyone the last time we were there. We didn't know if they would continue to be used or not, but they were. And every one of the workers there had their cross on. And so that was just very heartwarming to see that it really meant something to them. So our experience at the orphanage, we had gifts to present. So we had some blankets, some onesies, some things like that, that of course they were just delighted with. That was a real treat. We all got our snuggle time in with babies. They were delighted to have us do that. We found that it was clean again. It smelled good. The babies were clean and healthy and happy, well cared for. We were delighted that things were not put on for us the first time, and we were a little nervous about maybe finding something different this time, but that was not the case at all. It didn't look any different than it did the first time we were there. So we were absolutely delighted with that. And if you remember our little lady Miracle, she was the one that was from Kashasha that came to the orphanage shortly before we got there, and she came at about the age of 2 days, we think, and just a terrible situation, and health issues, and just on and on. And this is Miracle. She round cheeks, happy. She had bonded with her caregiver, which was so important to see. I am a mother of an adopted child, and we know how important it is for children to bond with someone in order to, to be relationship building later in life. And Amy got to hold her for a moment until she realized, oops, she's not someone I know. And right back she had to go to, but anyway, that was our experience with Miracle. We were so delighted that she had been cared for so well. But you can see us with our babies here, and just having a wonderful experience. So $3,000 collected from St. Mark's. What a gift. We all had some of this money because we had to transfer it to Tanzania shillings. We all had our little pack because we distributed amongst all of us. We were teasing that we had to hide it in our underwear because we didn't want anybody to run off with that. But we held it very closely to us. And when we gave it to Sister Penina, she was overwhelmed. She was absolutely overwhelmed. And that she told us would be used to purchase formula. And I said, so how long will this purchase formula for your babies? A month and a half. So so you can imagine how expensive formula is, but they had about 40 some babies again. So, you're feeding babies 5 or 6 times a day. So that $3,000 was such a gift. And she was so careful about it. She wanted to write us a receipt right away to prove to us that it was going to go for the children, and just very, very conscientious. So she was delighted, and we were so happy that we could give such a wonderful gift on behalf of St. Mark's. So it was just delightful. And I think AJ's going to talk about the tech school.
So you may recall during our visit last November, with the with the help of the diocese, we had the opportunity to visit the Antoma Trade School, which is near Bacoba, also very near to where the orphanage is. Sorry, I'll get there. I only had 1 cup of coffee. My apologies. But we have been talking, and we mentioned in sort of our next steps, considering prayerfully what next steps or what things we might be able to do to help with this program. So we did have opportunity to visit, and we did bring some things that were in the shipping container, and some things that we brought with us physically that we could fit in our carry-ons to kind of benefit the programs there, and had a visit. So I'll tell you a little bit about that. We can.
One of those crosses.
Yes, Jeff, you should see your handiwork was spread far and wide, and very much appreciated. So as is kind of tradition there, and it's a wonderful tradition, and it was kind of exciting going back to kind of sit back and watch Maddie and Jen and the people who had not been there to kind of experience this. We were very warmly greeted. The entire staff and the students who were there came out. They sang songs. They did dances. They encouraged us to show off our lack of traditional dance skills, but wonderful to experience that part of the culture. And we were very warmly greeted. There was, yeah, as you can see, in addition to the students, the staff, everybody was involved. It was a lot of fun, very joyous, very musical. We'll go on. And we did some things, like I said, that had been in the shipping container. We talked about the sewing machines. You saw some of that maybe in the last presentation, but one of the other targets for some of those was for the textile and the seamstress programs here. So Sarah and a number of the other folks, I think you might have been involved in that as well. Or no, sorry.
We do have one of
We'll get there. But cosmetology was also one. They have a cosmetology program, so a lot of combs, brushes, hair ties, supplies, mirrors, and things were distributed, and actually had an opportunity for them to show us their skills on some of us. Oddly, Mike and I did not get drafted in for this. But it was great. You can see capes, you can see combs, all those kind of things that will really supplement what they're doing and their programs there in that area. A lot of fun was had. So yeah, and pictures were taken, but also one of the other programs that they have there is a music program. So we had keyboards and a number of other things. A tuba from the shipping container that went to benefit those programs. And also you can see one of Jeff's crosses was presented to the school as well. And Cindy and I had opportunity to actually sit down and talk with the folks in the music program, the director, and we took a care package for them with 40 sets of guitar strings. They haven't had new guitar strings in 10 years. So this was a big deal. Guitar picks, tuners, pitchforks, metronomes, some small things that we could carry, but also some of the bigger things from the container. And we also had discussion going forward, and this is an opportunity, of some other things that they need to supplement their musical equipment needs. They're also creating a recording studio so that they can teach some of those type of skills. So there are some bigger pieces of equipment, things that you absolutely could not fit in carry-on to get to them. So I'm continuing to work with them and some partners that we have through some other programs, Restringing Appalachia and the International Bluegrass Music Association and others, to see if we can get manufacturers to source us some instruments, work on some things to get shipping, because it turns out getting the instruments is doable. Getting them shipped to Tanzania is a very difficult and expensive operation. So we're working through some things with that, but we're continuing to have dialogue with the people in the program to see what other things we can do to help to forward that. And here you can see some of the instruments and some of their music room. We did get them a new keyboard that was donated by a member of the congregation that's going to really help them with some of that. And now we're back to sewing machines. So we got them. There were some treadle machines. There were some electric machines. So we had opportunity. And that's one perhaps opportunity. Maybe you can talk more about that. In addition to just equipment, for them, having materials to work on is difficult. They don't have a lot of it. They don't have a lot of sources for it. So that may be an opportunity going forward if we can figure out ways to gather materials or to get materials to them to give them more hands-on material to work with in addition to the equipment. But they were able to get the new machines set up. I'm sure gave them a rundown on the electric machines. Wellington worked with us to make sure we had the necessary power and power adapters and things that were necessary for that. But that's really going to lift that program up, which was great. And again, we got to work with some of the students. The other thing that we had interest in. As you're probably familiar, we've had a scholarship program for young ladies in the village to go on to secondary education for quite some time. Now that we have kind of this relationship and some insight into the trade school and some of the programs that they have, and in addition to what we've seen there, they have culinary programs. They have a ministry program for people who want to pursue being pastors or being evangelists and things like that. They have a number of programs. And, we were kind of thinking it would be nice for folks who maybe aren't going on to secondary education, or also for young men in the village to have an opportunity to perhaps pursue a secondary education in a trade. So we're kind of looking at options, looking at possibilities. And I know Mike and Wellington had some discussions with them about what that might look like, what requirements might be, how we might select things. So you may be hearing more about that in future with regard to the trade school. All right. Who's next?
The church.
Oh, yes. We also had opportunity, I guess it's me, to share in worship time at the Lutheran Church in Kashasha, which is always joyous. And how many students was it? 100?
Right. We think we had about 140 children in church that Sunday.
Just at the Sunday school. So it's a big thing. It's a central part of their community. And here you can see in the church, as Mike talked about the last time, we got them some of the replacement stained glass, I believe, has been installed now, which is wonderful. And it's amazing to share that service with them, because obviously, at least for me, my Swahili is about that big, but it feels so familiar. I mean, it's a Lutheran service. The liturgy is the same. The energy is wonderful, and the singing. And I believe we'll have a little video here lately where you can experience some of that. But it's just a joyful thing. In fact, here's the video now. One of the things that was delivered was a new keyboard for their organist, and they debuted it this Sunday that we were here.
You can see the quill that Sue Klotz made on the wall in the front.
I don't know if we. It's a little hard to hear, but. So that was a great thing, and they were very excited to have a new keyboard. It opens up new possibilities for them. We'll try it again. Short clip, but one of the other things that we did that we'll talk about more in a moment. Oh.
Not the tech person, AJ.
There we go. That was done, and again, thanks to the generosity of a lot of members of the congregation who donated either funds or actually sewed and prepared clothing. The children in the village from the church had an opportunity to get new clothing, and we had.
We'll talk about that more.
We're going to talk about that more, but there was amazing turnout. But the thing was, we did it on a Saturday, and on Sunday morning at church, we saw so many of those outfits, and they were so proud of them. It was a wonderful thing. But you can see in that Sunday school, you may see some outfits that you had a part in. So thank you for that.
I can talk about this part just a little bit more.
Yep.
So one of the things, so Amy and I popped over, we thought we're going to check and see how many kids actually are over in the Sunday school, because like St. Mark's, once they get ready for the message, they send the children out with a couple of teachers. So we popped out of the back and went over, and we were amazed. Every bench was full. You could see them all squished in there. And then every spot in front of the benches were full. So we counted at like 120 on the benches, and then however many more were in the front. 2 teachers handled that whole group of students. They were listeners, they were attentive. And so we were just kind of taking pictures, and we wanted to have some pictures of the clothing with the children wearing them that St. Mark's had donated. And then they were like, oh, come up front. They brought us out chairs and they had us sit there. Maddie was with us too. And wanted us to be honored. You know, they wanted us to be up front, see what they were doing. And they did a little lesson that took about 10 minutes, David and Goliath. And even though we didn't know, the language, we knew what story they were telling. And then the teachers turned to us and said, would you teach the children something? And we're like, what? We went over and got Wellington. We're like, we don't understand what you're asking us to do. We're not prepared to teach anything. And they said, dance, something, music, a song. So of course, Amy and her love of the chicken dance came up with, let's teach them the chicken dance. So that's where this came from. Without preparation, understand. That's the best we could do. You can't hear it very well, but Amy is playing the music. I'm just trying to pull him along. And they were getting it. You could tell they were starting to help each other. Okay, let's see if we can move on from there.
And then as part of that service, the presentation of the cross, and also Pastor Dixon accepting the stained glass, which
Mike did talk about
Yep,
that.
he
last
talked
week,
about that a
the
little bit, but-
glass that they had put together for us.
Yep. All right. Any questions before we move on about the trade school or the worship? You're just ready to not hear me talk.
I can say that some donations have already been started for Kashasha primary students to go to the technical school. And we learned that it's about $500
A year. Times 2.
Room, board, materials, everything. So it's an affordable amount for people. A lot of times we'll have people say, what can I contribute to? And that's a really good one. And Veronica at the school will determine those students that might be interested in whether they might be recommended for that, right, Marlene?
That is my understanding. She's putting together some type of process for the students to apply.
So yeah, if that's of interest to you, more details will be forthcoming. Don't hesitate to ask.
And they typically go for 2 years. So it does end up being about $1,000 for the students to be trained in some type of technical training.
All right. We'll loop back to the clothing distribution. Yes.
When you were talking about the sewing, is that for make clothes for themselves or to sell?
It really was about trying to get the girls to be marketable so they could get a job as a seamstress. So that's why they said a lot of the places have treadle machines, and that's okay. But it would raise their level of employability if they knew how to use an electric machine, because a lot of the companies that are looking for seamstress want someone who can use an electric machine.
But you said they need supplies.
Oh, So when I said, show me what you're working on, one girl brought out a dress that she was making. And I said, where's everybody else's? And one of the teachers was there to help with the language. And they said, we can't all sew necessarily our own projects at the same time because we don't have material. So, so we did bring some material. Had we known, we would have brought a lot more, but we had a lot of thread with us and replacement needles and some of those kinds of things, but we didn't bring a ton of material. So that was kind of an aha for us that, wow, it is helpful that we're providing these machines, but they need material, in a long term. Yeah.
So that's gonna get everybody on fire and they're gonna be like, I'm gonna get some fabric. So mainly cotton or cotton polyester mix.
Yes, I would say yes to
Yeah.
that. The problem is going to be, how are we going to get it there?
Right.
Because, there are lots of projects we're working on between the
and-
orphanage and
And one other wrinkle to that as well is there are local vendors in Bacoba, in the region there, that sell and provide fabric. It would also be an avenue to partner with them and bring some business into the local economy to take donations that go to those providers specifically to get materials to the trade school so that we can raise all of the boats together. So that's also an option that we kind of kick around. So keep that in mind as
Just
well.
a couple of doors down from the lady who made Pastor Robin's jacket. That's where we go first to get the fabric. So it would be great to support that instead of supporting here and then having to lug it there. Most of you who sew know that a pile of fabric is pretty heavy. So
Right.
it would be
And
great
it turns
to
out it's a
spread.
long way to Tanzania.
Okay. Cindy is going to talk to us about the delightful, heartwarming experience of clothing distribution.
Thank you. This was such a delight. All the days there were great, but this was a day that warmed all of our hearts beyond measure. And thank you to all of you who contributed to this in any way, prayer, hands-on, making things, whatever it might be. And I think these are just, what we did is we had a number of dresses, outfits for boys that were made by members of the congregation. We kind of got there and went, we have no idea how many children are going to show up for wanting one new outfit. We were asking that they limit it to one. And how do we distribute this? So it was a Saturday morning, and we took one of the buildings and walked in, and there were just benches everywhere. Organized a boys' room, a girls' room, and laid out the clothes by sizes. We had done some pre-sort, laid them out by sizes. Took some of the benches and tables and stacked them in a corner and put a sheet in front of it so that they could try on the clothes to see if it fit somewhat appropriately. So there was a line outside. The word had gotten around. This was all by word of mouth. The word had gotten out that they could come on Saturday morning. They came into the room. They were greeted by someone who helped them, kind of sized them up, picked out an outfit. They went behind the curtain to try it on and modeled it and walked out with their outfit. So here you can see a few of those. And they were so thrilled. There was one little girl, I don't know if we have a picture of her, who had sparkly shoes somehow. But it didn't matter. They were just thrilled beyond belief with these clothes, and what a delight it was. And as AJ said, many of them, this little one came in with some brothers. He has the outfit on backwards. So brothers, we went, all right, why don't you go back behind the curtain again and turn it around? They did, and he came out the same way. So we went, looks great. He was adorable. They all were adorable. And they were it was such a delightful day. We distributed everything we had. Did an all right we were close on the numbers, but it was very hard to estimate. We just didn't know. But there were so many families that were blessed by all of you that day, and we thank you for that.
One of the little stories that I have that I just thought was so cute is we were trying to be so careful about providing a screen for the children to go behind. We want modesty is important to them. So Amy was in the back. I was on the girls' side. And so Amy was in the back and she would help them change out of their clothes and we would bring them out and they would walk and Mosier was taking pictures so that they kind of felt like, something special was going on. And we had said, that they could wear them to church the next day if they wanted to, that we would be delighted to see them again. And then they would go on their way. They get outside, they strip right there in front of everybody that's in line, and they put their old clothes back on so they could take their new clothes home and not get them dirty. And that was just another perspective of how important those clothes were to them because they did not want to wear them home and take the chance of getting them dirty. So that was really something that kind of struck me as important to them. Some ideas about next steps, because that's often a question that we ponder, that I think anyone that's gone, the people that are here at St. Mark's wondering what else might be next. Rebuilding classroom structures. So one side of a very long building has been rebuilt and it's beautiful. It looks wonderful, but the other side has not been touched. And that's the side with no electricity, broken out windows, crumbling walls. So that is something that still is kind of on our radar.
And Marlene, that was still as a result of that earthquake.
Absolutely.
Not intention, you know what I mean?
Right. Not intentionally not taking care of it or anything like that. Yes, absolutely. Electricity and paint then for some of the other classrooms that need to be lifted up a little bit. Books for each student at the Kashasha Primary. So the government provides books for about one of every 5 children. And that would be like 5 books, like an English, a Swahili, math, social studies, and science. So having books for the other children so that they could actually take them home, study from them, those kinds of things would be something that would be so helpful. Establishing maybe even a trade school right in Kashasha. There was a trade school there many, many years ago that was run by the diocese that folded. The structure is still there, but maybe starting up, I think one of the visions would be, could we teach some of the girls how to sew? That would be one of the things that we could bring there locally. So that was another idea about a way to kind of walk along beside them. The next one is the readers, the glasses, the eye exams. I told you the story last week about Mary, who could not see to thread the needle of the sewing machine. So really looking at what can we do to help support the reading vision, all of those pieces of that issue for them. They would love to get a computer technology teacher. Their internet, I believe, is becoming more efficient and regular. Electricity and a portable projector, not just for the school or for the computer lab or the library, but maybe to be used in a bigger setting, even for the whole community. And we would like to have pen pals for our Hakima girls so they could have some connection with us a little bit more. We really think that would mean a lot to them. And I think that's our last slide. Any other questions that you might have about anything that you have seen? It's good to see the people in the back. Hello. Recently back from Tanzania, is that correct? No?
No, Lisa and I are going.
Very good. Okay. Very good. Okay. Well, we thank you for coming. And again, yes.
This is David Moshi. He is a college student from Tanzania, and he worships here at St. Mark's. Many of you have met him already. But he said he'd love to say a few words. If that would
Come on up, David, of course.
Oh, thanks so much for this opportunity to give me.
I'm so glad to see these things. It give me a reminder back home. This is the way I grow up, catching waters, carrying some bucket on the top of the head. So it's very, very awesome for me. So I thank you for this chance and go back to help us as a team. It's so very interesting. So sometimes I want to cry, but I say thanks so much. Yeah.
Moshe, could you David,
Yeah.
could you tell a little bit about how you came to be in Bowling Green?
Oh, there is one of my friend who came here in US to study in BHSU. So he's the one who connect me. But he also back home, I used to go to Lutheran school, which is also help from people come from Ohio. So they helped my school. So I have a little bit connection about the Ohio and Bowling Green. So he's the one who connected me. So I apply. Then I came in US. But when I came here, a lot of challenges financially, and this church is the one helped me also to pay my tuition fees a little bit. So I thank so much for this. I'm glad I'll be here right now.
What are you studying?
I'm trying to study PhD in mathematics right now. Yeah.
David, what town did you grow up in?
Dodoma.
Dodoma.
Yes.
So our synod has a relationship with the Lutheran Church in Dodoma. You can sometimes see pictures of other pastors and lay people from our synod visiting Dodoma. And there was a picky campaign going so that pastors would have a little motorcycle to be able to get to all the different churches in that area. So Dodoma would be, how far from Kishasha do you think?
I think something like 600 miles or
Yeah.
500 miles. Yeah, it's very far.
So it's
Yeah,
not the capital? Yes.
yeah, it's the capital. Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
do you want to do with your degree?
I think I'll go back home and just help my community. Yeah, when I finish, when I'm done with my PhD. Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you, David.
Thank you.
We appreciate you coming. Thank you.
Go in peace.